Cheeky Traveler, Episode 2. Welcome to Cheeky Traveler Episode 2. I'm your host, Tom Donnelly, and today I'm going to talk to you about why now is a great time to visit Central America. Not only for adventure travelers, but for all travelers. And in this episode, I'm going to dive right into the segment. Alright, in today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about why now is a great time to visit Central America. When I say now, I don't mean you need to go today, next week, or even next month, but I'm talking about the next few years here, why it's really a good time to get down or up to Central America, depending on where you're coming from, and why you don't want to wait, another 10 years to do this. The first reason for this is because the land is not overdeveloped in much of Central America's countries. A lot of the coast is still jungle, still cliffs, still white sand beaches, and a lot of the places where there are hotels are just small places to stay. They're not huge resorts. They're not clearing out jungle just to build huge resorts for people to stay in. Now, I did see some of this happening in Costa Rica, and it is a big concern throughout Central America. But a lot of it is not developed, and different countries have different restrictions on this. So in Belize, I know the government has sold some of their land to foreigners. I'm not exactly sure who, but I know that some of these foreigners do have plans on building big resorts. And the reason they do this is because tourism really sustains their economy. It brings in a lot of money, so they just sell the land to foreigners to bring in that more money. So, a lot of it, as sad as it is to say, it could be getting demolished here. A lot of the jungle and a lot of the coastline, just because they're going to put up huge resorts. I mean, you see it in Mexico. If you've ever been down to like Cancun or Puerto Vallarta, there is resorts everywhere. And imagine what that looked like before those resorts were there. How serene and secluded that was. That's how Central America looks now, and I don't think it's going to stay like that forever. Maybe parts of it will, but I think it's a better time now to go down there rather than take the risk and wait, and you might get down there at the wrong time. Now, the second reason that I think now is a great time to get to Central America is because it's cheap. You could find flights, for instance, you could fly to Costa Rica from Chicago. I did it last year for under $300. Now, if you're probably coming from other parts of the world, it could be a lot more expensive. But other than that, when you get to the countries, it is very cheap. You could eat meals for $8 to $10, and these are great meals, great local food. You could go to a nice restaurant, have a few drinks, get a great meal for all under, I'll just say $15 to be safe here. And then another thing is the countries are very close together. So if you are coming from, say, Europe or Asia, and you're not just going to want to go to one country, you could take a car and go from Guatemala to Belize to Costa Rica, the Honduras, Panama. The countries are very close together. They're not huge countries, so there's a lot of territory that you could cover in a short amount of time. In fact, if you look at some tour operators, you'll notice that a lot of their tours actually that are like 14 days long, they will go to 2 or 3 countries, sometimes even more. There's even tours that are 30 days long, and they'll cover 4 or 5 countries within those 30 days. Now, another great reason, especially for adventure travelers, to go to Central America now is because the adventure traveling down in Central America is great. There is so many activities you could do down there, from whitewater rafting to diving to snorkeling to caving to seeing Mayan ruins to zip lining. If you're into sport fishing, it's some of the best sport fishing in the world down there. There is just plenty of things to do. The rainforest, you could see all types of monkeys, reptiles, crocodiles, caiman, sloths. You could see basically a ton of exotic animals down in Central America. So jumping back to the price again and how cheap Central America is, most people say the best time to go is January through April to a few of the countries in Central America. This is true for the weather, definitely, but I find a great time to go not only for weather and price is around October or November. This is right before the hot season hits in a lot of these countries. The hot season mostly starts in December, so that's when you're going to start seeing prices jump on airlines and in hotels. So October, November, even go a little closer to November just to avoid a lot of the wet season, because the wet season in some of the countries down there is during our summer months. So wet season ends in December officially, but in November, you'll usually get a lot of sunshine around then. So if you want to get a good cheap price on flights and hotels, go before December. And you'll even notice this if you look on some of the hotels' websites that their prices jump up in December, because that's when all the tourists are going and that's when the crowds get bigger. So another good reason to go before then is to avoid less crowds. And we did this for our group trip in Costa Rica. We went in November, right in the beginning of November. It was like the 6th through the 14th, something like that. And there really was not any large crowds in any of the places we went, which was nice. There was people, but nothing was overcrowded to the point where you didn't get that true feeling of what it was like to live in Costa Rica. We definitely had that feeling and got to see the lifestyle of Costa Ricans because it wasn't all tourist in all the places we went. Now, another thing to remember is you're going to be in the rainforest, so make sure you come prepared. You definitely want to bring a raincoat when you go to Central America, especially if you're going to be doing some hikes. I would recommend bringing one either way. Doesn't matter where you're going, just because. This is just a good tip to have whenever you go on a vacation or an adventure anywhere, because if it starts raining, you do not want to be drenched, especially if it's going to be cold. Another one is get some water shoes. You could get some water shoes at go to Sports Authority or your sporting store. You could get them for $10. I would highly recommend getting these if you're going to be doing some waterfall rappelling, whitewater rafting, or even if you're going to be on the beach. So if you step on anything, it's going to protect your feet. But when you do the adventure activities like waterfall rappelling or whitewater rafting, they always tell you to wear some kind of shoes and not sandals. So these water shoes, they're super cheap, $10, and you could really wear them anywhere on any of the adventures you do. They're good for walking in too. Another thing that you probably want to bring is either a waterproof bag or a waterproof cover to cover your bag, because when you go on a lot of the hikes, you're going to want to bring a backpack. You don't have to bring a big one, a small one, but you're going to want to put water in there and some fruit, some things to eat, just because you'll be out there for a few hours sometimes. So it's always good to have something to cover up your backpack and yourself, especially if you're going to have cameras with you also. You don't want that getting ruined. So there's a few tips for you when you're adventure traveling or just traveling in general. And here's why I chose Belize for my next trip. So I chose Belize as my next group trip in 2010 just because of the great things that I've heard about it. First of all, I fell in love with Costa Rica when I was down there. And I knew that there was a lot of other places to see in Central America. And I've heard a lot of great things about Belize. This is another reason why I chose it, because everybody that I've talked to that has been to Belize, I have not heard one bad statement. Actually, I do take that back. I heard something about Belize City, but I'm not a biased traveler. If I hear something bad, I'll still go there and check it out by myself.